Speaking of visually appealing games, what have you been playing with recently? That Townscape?
Yes,
I've
I'm
been
going to.
I've been following this guy on Twitter for absolutely ages, wanting to know when it's going to be released, and then it was released. I didn't
Well, it's
realise.
in early access.
Oh, it's
So
early access.
let me share my screen. Okay. So Townscaper, which is now bigger.
Oh, that's an interesting sound. I'm going to turn that down whilst it's loud. You'll also be turned down for the moment.
So Townscaper is billed as a toy, not a game. And for those of you who don't know, you get this plop of water and you can put things down.
Okay, for some reason that's not going full screen, so I have to do it like that.
And you can add some buildings. And as you add things, it will change what they look like.
Yeah, it's not.
And what I find interesting about this is, let me, is the way it does this weird procedural logic as to what all these things mean. And just having done some work with procedural work before, like I know, okay, I want stairs up here, so I know I need to do this. Sometimes. Bring the stairs. I forgot how to do stairs. Oh, wait, I have to do this.
Yeah.
And I find this kind of fascinating because there's all these little rules about how the procedural content works. So here's a little town I've been making. One thing I don't like about this game at all is there is no select and fill. If I want to fill in this river, I have to do this manually, which is really old. But here's a little town I was playing with.
Are there sound options? It's quite loud when you're putting stuff down, by the way.
That's a good question. So yeah, it's fun to build these little things and see like how to make these towers or these little archway buildings and plan a neighborhood. There's no game here, but just from a procedural generation thing, like the algorithm that decides what asset's going to be used and how it's going to work, and I think it's kind of fascinating. I would love to see an actual game here, or at least some texture packs. So maybe you don't have this almost Parisian architecture style. Maybe you have, I don't know, a steampunk one, or a high fantasy one, or Victorian England, or Elizabethan England, or pick a thing.
Or even, you know, like city or village, that sort of.
Yeah.
One thing I would love.
Grass.
Yeah. One of the things I would love to see with this particular game is an export function. Being able to export this and then walk around it. What a brilliant level design.
I am Frank Lloyd Wright. Architect of the century. Look at that.
Spot on. That's the thing, though. This enables creativity in a way that is so accessible.
It has that special grid thing that you were telling me about. I can't remember the name of.
Well, it's based upon a grid, and then the grid... Can you show the grid on screen?
Yes. I guess the water I can.
So if I believe this is what the developer was saying. So that is a standard grid that has been altered by mixing it with a Voronoi texture.
Yep.
And there's a lighthouse.
It's a good building there.
Yeah, so it's based upon a normal grid, and then it's just displaced. And that really gives the whole thing a bit more of an organic look to it.
It's a lighthouse, what I would do. There you go, lighthouse.
Nice.
It's awful. Don't encourage that.
Oh, neat. I like that.
It's cute, isn't it? So, I like the rules he's written in. I don't think this is much of a game. Like, after an hour of playing this, you're kind of done. It's
a sandbox, isn't it? It's a toy box that can keep you entertained for a few hours.
Dying a little bit of dying. Yeah, so that's Townscape, or Townscaper. What's it called? It's Townscaper. It's in early access. Yep. It's a fun little toy. It's something to do while you're having, for example, a business meeting with Mikey and he doesn't know it's on the other monitor.
Wait, what? Super skilled. Yeah, it is really, really cool. I love the look of it. I'm still looking. I'm just going to look quickly for the game that I'm
Catch up
really.
with the comments. Yeah, it's a fascinating toy. It also makes really good D&D maps. If you take a screenshot of it from up top.
Yeah.
It's fun for story generation. I am fascinated by how the algorithm works to decide what asset to put in which tile. It's a grid map, right? I mean, that's what we're looking at.
So there's a new sort of game based upon voxels and physics. I believe it's called Teardown. And that looks absolutely phenomenal. I'm not going to show the footage that I'm looking at the moment because that's a good way of getting copyright struck. But yeah, Teardown. That looks absolutely amazing. Anyway, so yeah, the way that the game is set up, I believe, is you have to destroy the level and to make holes so you can go between pickups essentially, and then you need to. The moment you pick the first thing up, the moment you steal something, a timer starts going down. And then you've got to go and collect everything and leave the level, get to the extraction point or whatever. And the way that you can just destroy the level is so detailed. And it's got what we were talking about, systemic things. So when you burst a pipe, it will fill up a room with gas or water or smoke. And that sort of, that is phenomenal. I like the look of it. And it looks like it's quite performant as well, which is one of the downsides of having such an infinitely destructible
Shipbreaker.
The one where you cut the ships into. Yes, I've had a look at that. That's a really unique take on being able to cut things up.
It's really interesting for a few days. At which point it's like, well, I kind of get it now. Like, yeah, there's bigger ships to unlock by grinding. I have this enormous debt to pay off by grinding. I'm going through the same loop. There's something about games where you get this big messy thing and you clean them up, like Viscera Cleanup Duty.
Yes,
it's kind of this weird zen to it. Mikey and I played Viscera Cleanup Duty a few times, and there's something about getting this level that Space Marines have made a complete mess of and leaving it sparkling that is oddly satisfying in a way that Housework isn't.
I think it's the fact that like anything, if you can see the change you're making, you get that visual feedback. And there's also the challenge of, if you're a completionist, finding that last shell that's been dropped on the ground.
Clean my house.
I decline your offer.
Do you see what I mean? Like, why is that more fun in a game than it is in real life?
Because I can turn off the game. Simple as that.
Viscera Cleanup Duty is really judgy if you miss a bullet hole or a piece of blood. Like, you have failed. Like, you get really bad messages about it.
Yeah, any game that has that sort of level of user feedback, you know, when you do start the game, it is a complete mess.
Thanks, Jelly.
Mission Impossible, indeed. You know, look, I would help, but you'd just go behind me going, hee hee hee.
Also, there's quarantine.
Yeah. I will virtually clean your house.
I virtually clean it all the time. Yeah, it's virtually clean.